Before we begin, I would like for us all to take a brief moment and pay tribute to Chris Ayres, the voice of Freeza, who passed away recently. You had a remarkable life, sir. Now you may rest. Love and laughter, always. Thank you for your time, folks, and I thought I'd just say that, out of respect. We do have a Dragon Ball Super Chapter to review, and forgive me if I'm a little raw later on after recent events, but there is something I need to vent about as well, but I'll save that for my closing thoughts. I'll keep the general review separate from that. For now, though, you can keep up with the manga via Viz Media's online portal that you can find a link to in the description, as well as checking out my predictions video earlier on this week for the chapter, which was spoiler-free by the way, to see whether my guesses were right or not. Let me know my score and yours. Chapter 77, Bardock, the father of Goku. Oh, I see what you did there. You called back to the original special there, didn't you, Viz? Nice touch. But you probably still won't convert the majority of the fandom to liking this Bardock. You might actually make the problem even worse. I'm just saying. Where we last left off, we had the second part of the battle with Ultra Ego Vegeta and Granolah, which was left on a bit of a cliffhanger. And plenty of presumptions. In the end, Granolah is the one about to launch the final blow on Vegeta, and by proxy the Saiyans, and everyone else on Planet Cereal, since he was literally going to blow the planet up, before Monito and Oatmeal join the show and reveal something that the old Namekian probably should have told the Cerulean decades ago, but didn't. For some reason. Plot. But hopefully this will be explained today. But yes, Bardock is now fully ingratiated into the manga outside of Dragon Ball Minus. Whoop. But based on Chapter 76, we got some good parts in that the Shigarians are starting to realise that this bounty hunter that they've been working with is probably not the nicest guy in the area, and that he might be more of a hindrance than a help to their future. Also, I still stand by Ultra Ego Vegeta being a great name, and that the transformation will be so good against Freeza, it'll make so much sense. If we ever see Freeza again in the present day. How ironic. We used to be lamenting about Freeza being in the manga and anime, now we're wanting him to come back. We start our chapter off with what appears to be the Namekians and Ceruleans living in harmony, coexisting together, where they exchange food and crops for water in a rather symbiotic manner. I imagine that the Namekians also provide the Dragon Balls and magical protection for the Ceruleans in exchange for their plentiful water supply, as well as their defensive skills, with the eye thing. Well, that is until the Saiyans show up on page 3. So much for that piece then, I guess it's not exciting enough. The Saiyans arrive akin to their impact on East City back in Z, suddenly. A young Monito is present at the start of the attack, and various cameos from the Bardock special, I think some of the grunts, crop up as the Namekian villagers are rounded up by even more grunts. But apparently there weren't that many beings living on Planet Cereal anyway, so the entire conquest of Cereal was done pretty quickly. It was a very unfair fight, you think, which makes me wonder for later in the saga as to why exactly the Saiyans were sent there if this was so easy. Something to do with the Heeters, no doubt. Some kind of ploy. In the end, Monito is the only Namekian alive, and given the power of the Cerulean Dragon Balls. Somehow. I guess the balls are linked to all Cerulean Namekians instead of just one? So once they all die, the balls then die effectively too, I guess? Well, anyway, the snipers are next to be toppled when we allude back to the flashback we got earlier in the tome, where Bardock's ape form spots Granolah making a dash for it to the church that he hid in with his mum. Bardock spots Granolah with his mum, but just as he's processing what to do, the powerful Flake, of course it being a cereal pun, shoots for the moon, and despite the Saiyans' best efforts, the strike aims true. And look at the technique right here. It's the same as Granolah's once he almost blew up the planet they're on right now. I guess actually maybe this is the perfected version of the Ceruleans' ultimate technique, perhaps? Neat. So do the Ceruleans think they actually won? No. Despite no giant monkey form, the Saiyans still kicked their butt anyway to Hiffle and back. No, strike that. Straight to Hiffle. Just that. They just had to put in a little more effort as all the monkeys. Then we see Leek from the Broly movie. Oh, that's where he got his scar. Nice. That's a cool little tidbit for later on and attention to detail as well. I like this. But here's the shot we all wanted. Bardock in his minus gut. Oh wait, no, actually no. This kind of looks like a mix of the Broly look and his original look from 1990 with the black plating and everything. I wonder when this gets colorized if we actually see the epaulets and shoulder bits and the accents all green. Interesting. Granola's mum then defends her son and does enough to graze Bardock's arm, but Granolah is knocked out and is unconscious. But then brings us to a flashback within a flashback, which I think is just Bardock's own POV. So how does Monaito know about this then? Why does he remember the part he wasn't there for? I think this bit's just for us folks because Gine! Yay! All is good folks, Gine is in the manga! And in any case, Gine here is no longer pregnant, and Bardock didn't know that, which is how long he has been gone for, and Goku's mother is now demanding from him a very simple task that he pick a name for their new kid, before her beau skips town again. And all of this whilst Raditz is outside playing with beetles, his only friends. Raditz is King Beetle. However, back inside, Bardock is stunned to see little Kakarot, and this touches a nerve in him, something deep within. Oh, wait, I'm supposed to actually care about my offspring. Huh. But yes, seeing little Kakarot awakens paternal pride within Bardock, and he comes up with Kakarot almost at once. Something has sparked within him, which is akin to empathy, and all it took was Gine to do it, and for Bardock to be there at the right time of Kakarot being in the nursing capsule. I guess he missed all of that with Raditz, huh? Poor boy. Doesn't get a break in the official canon, does he? As Bardock comes back to his senses, his buddy Leek tells him to get going as Freeza's going to be showing up soon. He doesn't. But Goku's dad tells him to bounce and he'll check for survivors. He's covering for those two. He's shown some kind of mercy or like, oh yeah, I have a lady and kid. We have so much in common. Alright, I'll help you. Don't think of this as him being all mushy and goody-goody if you're worried about that. He's just got a smidgen of empathy is all. He's still a brute of a person after all he's done before then, for all years. He then takes Granolah and his mum, now named Muezli, perfect since you could put Granolah atop of Muezli, and Monaito is pleased to see civilians that had survived out in the forest, and gives them sanctuary in said forest. Monaito then asks why Bardock helped because he's a Saiyan, but he says he felt like it. His gut feeling coming back again from the Broly movie. And remember that gut feeling was actually well explained in that movie, so doesn't really stand to reason as it couldn't be brought back here. So Monaito kept that from Granolah all this time. Man, what a Cell Saga Gohan of him. But it's only now that the Zenny drops that Goku realizes that Bardock is his actual dad, and Vegeta knew about this name the entire time, he just needed the connection to come together. Which kind of makes sense why he knows his name, because he's a royal. It would have been his job to know for the future in case he became king. But yes, this line, folks, it's not Bardock specific at all. He's talking about the family umbrella, which could include Gine. But I imagine in this context, he means Bardock alone, but we all know the truth. But I'll get to my venting about the lead up to this later. Despite all the evidence pointing to these Saiyans being good, Granolah wants more proof on why his mum died. Yeah, why did she die? Well, we shall see. Later that night, we see the Heeters stalking the area whilst Muezli is having her wounds healed up, just about by the old Namekian with Bardock guarding them. And then finding out that the Heeters were playing the Freeza Force the entire time with their fudging of the numbers to give them more money than the Freeza Force should get. And them not understanding the true value of a planet that they commissioned for the Freeza Force to purge. Ooh, intriguing. And the Freeza Golden Line right here? Nice. Also, it seems that 40 years ago, the tables were sort of different between the Heeters and the Freeza Force. They sort of worked together, or the Heeters worked for the Freeza Force in some way. They weren't separate like they are now. They did work together after all. Things obviously did change though, and this big score with the Shigarians could have been the tipping point. But then Granolah wakes up from the buzz of the earlier events and spots Bardock's tail, him not knowing anything about Bardock saving them, and just screams, "Ah, Saiyan!" Oh, that's where he gets it from. But yeah, he gives the game away so the Heeters hear them and they spot them. Oh dear, Granolah. You're responsible for your mother dying, aren't you? Despite Monaito putting the boy to sleep again, the jig is up. So Bardock has to do some quick thinking to get the J-Puri back on track. When Alec comes down to check the events, Bardock tries to divert their attention in an edgy way with a cape and everything, saying that, oh, he's checking Monaito's power. Oh, those other two, they're not worth it. Just let me deal with it. But that doesn't wash, and Elec just shoots Muezli right there and there, which then awakens the empathic bond again that Bardock has with Gine, and is now attached to Muezli. Yeah, and Bardock attacks the Heeters, but Gas shields the group, and I imagine he ends up fighting him further down the line. And sure enough, it's implied that he does. But he did fail, off-screen, to which the little Kid Buu Heeter lookalike is determined to correct with that Saiyan's son. But wait, one of my predictions from last week might be coming true. Elec holds one of the Cerulean Dragon Balls, and they're on course for the second. Come on, Monaito, wrap up the exposition, and Granolah, just sort yourself out, man, as quick as you can as the chapter ends. Okay, I said I would talk about this, so I will. Before I go into my thoughts for the chapter itself, I need to say this, folks. Really, some of you got worked up over one word, an illusion that Vegeta made about Bardock having a soft spot that Kakarot supposedly inherited. That was enough for Twitter to go insane and condemn the chapter before even the detailed spoilers came out? Listen back to that sentence. A furore about one word. A sentence, at most. I can't believe it. Granted, I pay attention to the spoilers, it's my job to, but I don't take them to heart, base my conclusions on them, and share them with everybody. I'm not going to do that. This has to stop, folks. This is now just bagging on Super just because. I get that it's trendy to do that, and it gets views, but that doesn't make it right. This arc is really trying its best to provide a more subtle experience for Dragon Ball, something different, some character growth, and also, think about it. Why did you even get angry without the proper picture? Isn't there the slightest possibility that Vegeta hasn't got a clue what he's talking about? That he's talking out of his butt? That was his summation based on what he heard from Monaito. He probably has no clue about Gine, Goku's mother. I mean, why would he? Because with Bardock he barely gave two shiny zennies about. Why would he care about Gine, who was even weaker? Right now the prince is guessing that Bardock was the source of Kakarot's merciful streak. No! Vegeta was straight up wrong! Monaito wouldn't know about the flashback that Bardock had either! That was meant for us, so please, remember that. Vegeta was talking through his own thought process, not making a definitive statement to be used in fact. Grr! It's really getting on my nerves. I'll probably talk more about this in another video, a bit calmer, but let's go over the chapter aside from this. Sorry about that, folks. Just had to. For a flashback episode, all in all, this was good. To me, it seemed well thought out and provides some explanations as to why Bardock spared these people without being corny, or at least not too corny. He had a moment of vulnerability based on the fact that he had seen the baby Kakarot for the first time, and it struck a chord with him. Like with any parent seeing their kid come into the world. It's actually implied, and makes sense actually, that he never had this experience with Raditz, most likely, as Gine presumed, because he was away on a mission. Before Raditz emerged from his nursing capsule, he didn't have that bonding moment, and thusly, they don't have that same connection. Why Raditz is outside playing with bugs. Seeing Kakarot, like that, vulnerable, moved Bardock to the point where it stayed with him. And also, Gine makes a good point. Probably a lot of Saiyan warriors don't experience this because they're usually away or they don't care. Or they don't even know. At this moment, Gine is squeegeeing Bardock's third eye of clarity and realizing of sentience and empathy. This moment gave him that empathy, something of which Raditz never gave him. Wow. Wow. Wow, Toriyama, you bagged on Raditz even more. I guess Raditz's only friends now in this anime and manga are bugs. Beetles? Treat him right. Nevertheless, this still doesn't excuse Bardock's past. He's still a Saiyan warrior, with plenty of pain and turmoil laying at his feet because of his actions. But this is a turning point for sure. Not redemption though, not even close. It was cool to see Granolah's mum Muezli a little bit more, but it was unfortunate to see her die like that, but it does definitely confirm that the Heeters are the major villains for this arc. That's what I will say about this flashback actually. It was very grounded in the lore that we know from early Z, when we first got to know Freeza. It served to flesh things out. Yeah, the Heeters and Freezers aren't allies, but when they sense a business opportunity, they can make it work. Albeit with some finagling of the numbers, but that's to be expected. They're big companies. And whilst this isn't the most exciting action you can expect, it definitely adds some definition to the world outside of Earth. And oh yes, we found out why Granolah hates Saiyans outside of the obvious attack. He was asleep whilst Bardock was being acquainted with Monaito and his mum and being a good guy, relatively. And if that kid had just kept his mouth shut when he did wake up, none of his anguish for the last 40 years might have happened. Or at least it wouldn't have happened in that manner. So, Granolah, I have this to say to you. You basically killed your mum. Bardock did nothing wrong this time. How does that feel? You shut up now. So yes, Granolah obviously has a lot to process right now. That Bardock almost saved him and Muezli from the Heeters, and that the people he had been dealing with for so long are also enemies. Not Freeza exclusively. But speaking of them, Gas's incident 40 years ago that he'd been talking about before was him fighting Bardock and him losing. But now, he's about to get revenge by using the Dragon Balls to become stronger than that Saiyan's son. So, if you couldn't tell already, I'm actually really pleased with this chapter. It's really given us a lot of things to work with for the upcoming second act of the saga. Granolah is now most likely going to calm down. Monaito's position now in the story is now less of a simple old man, and he's now the good man doing nothing. 16 would like a word with you, mate. And now, the Heeters are positioning themselves in the spotlight of being the main baddies, with me wanting desperately for Gas to be, you can't defeat me, and Granolah like, no, I know, but he can. And Freeza just rocks up, pounding the Heeters into oblivion. I know, simple pleasures. But it would be fun. But what did you folks think of this chapter? Do you feel that the flashback was good plot sustenance, or did it pretty much destroy your view on everything Dragon Ball as you knew it? Let me know down in the comments, and I shall see you next month for my review of Chapter 78, as well as my own future predictions for said chapter, spoiler-free. Until then, folks, I'll catch you later.